Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at Culture Reframed. My name is Gail Dines, and I am founder and president of Culture Reframed. If you want to see more of our Facebook Live chats, please go on our Facebook page where we have them all recorded. So it is my absolute pleasure and joy to have today Vednita Carter. And I just want to say one of the wonderful things about doing these Facebook Lives is I get to interview my very, very favorite people in the world. So let me first give you a bit of information about Vednita. She's founder of Breaking Free, one of the first nonprofit organizations based in St. Paul, Minnesota, and in the country, whose mission is to end all forms of prostitution and sex trafficking. Vednita is also an author, sought-after speaker, trainer, and award-winning pioneer in the abolitionist movement. She was awarded the prestigious Norma Hoatling Award for her lifelong service to victims of sex trafficking. She traveled to Europe, Southeast Asia, South America, Thailand, and many other countries to educate service providers and community members on Breaking Free's pioneering work and to offer assistance to helping them to create similar programs. In 2014, Vednita was awarded the Pathbreaker Award from Shared Hope International for her tireless efforts to reduce the demand for commercial sex. She was named a CNN hero for her work in ending sexual exploitation of women and girls in the United States and attended President Obama's State of the Union address as the guest of Representative Eric Paulson. In 2015, Vednita was awarded an honorary doctorate of divinity, ambassador at large, and chaplaincy from CICA International University and Seminary. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Vednita. Hello, Vednita.
Hi.
So I have to say, you might be CNN's hero, but you certainly have been my hero for way longer than CNN. And I've known you for so long, and I have to say, Vednita, I have developed a very thick skin around this work, but you are the one person that every time I listen to, you make me cry. And you make me cry because of your passion, your soul, your spirit. It just comes out of you. And the way in which you care for these survivors. And I remember once listening to you talk, I think it was at Wheelock College, actually, when we were doing a conference together.
Probably.
And I just sat there and, we'd listened to all these things, but you were the one who moved me, but in a way of offering hope and that there is a way out of this. And that's what you do. That's what you do. So it is just really a delight to have you here. And thank you so much for agreeing to do that.
Anything for you. I always say she is my Shiro. You're one of the first ones I heard talking about porn. I mean, you go way back and no one else was bold or brave enough to say the things you were saying. So you said a lot of things that helped me look at my life and really make some changes in it. So I am so grateful to be here.
Well, back to you and more than you the work you do. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about in a short time, so I'm going to jump straight in. And for those who aren't listening, who haven't known or what Breaking Free is, can you explain why you founded it and what are the goals of the organization?
Yeah. I founded Breaking Free back in the early 90s and really for one purpose. I am a survivor and have been through prostitution. It wasn't long lived, but I say a day is long enough, Yeah. So, and one thing that I realized was there was no place for women who had been involved in the life of prostitution and, sex trafficking. There was no place they could go to and talk about things that had happened to them. There was no place, I'm going to say, of refuge for them, so to say. And so I realized that one thing that was happening, they could not find housing. And I'm talking about battered women's shelters, emergency shelters, anything, because everybody would say, if we let them in our program, they're probably going to bring trouble. Their pimps are probably going to follow them. I mean, they were saying all kinds of things. And so I just know for me, it was very secretive. I never wanted anybody to know anything that I had been through. And I had got involved by way of stripping, which nobody would ever thought stripping, And I always say that is a stepping stone into prostitution. And it still is. And people don't understand that, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, that Breaking Free, I started that to help women have a safe place to go to be able to have housing. And I noticed for African-American women, I mean, the whole story changes when you're a Black or brown woman or girl. And they definitely had no place to go. So Breaking Free was really an Afrocentric organization. And the services that were provided were geared towards helping Black and brown women. Although we worked with all women, our focus was on Black and brown issues.
That was clear to me, actually, at your retirement event, when I had the honor of speaking at your retirement event. I remember that. And I remember there was one point where somebody said, anyone who's been helped by Vednita, please stand up. And this sea of African-American girls just stood up, young girls just cheering you, and the love they felt for you. And it was so apparent. And I know that's how you feel for them as well, because you've talked many times about the way in which you actually, I think you even said something like you love them into no longer being a victim and into being a survivor.
You know, a lot of people don't realize, but the average age of entry is about 14 years old in the pornography and prostitution. And the majority, according to the FBI statistic, are Black and brown girls that get involved. And so a lot of people don't understand that. And so, yes, I mean, my heart does go out to them. I mean, I was 18 when I got involved in stripping, which still was young. But I think you have to imagine 14 years old and some younger than that are getting in the life of trafficking and prostitution. And it's once in, it's really not easy to get out. And it's not a job like people want to believe. Yeah, it's not a profession. The oldest oppression against women and girls. So,
And you know what amazes me is all these so-called progressive organizations that are arguing for the legalization of prostitution. They're doing something in an industry that is falling most heavily on the shoulders of young African-American girls.
Yeah, I heard some of you. I apologize, but you're coming in and out.
Great. So I was saying all these so-called progressive organizations that support the legalization of prostitution are really supporting the exploitation of mainly African-American girls, and don't see the absolute hypocrisy in saying you've got progressive politics or you're anti-racist or anti-sexist, and yet are pushing for what is the most sexist, racist industry in the world.
Yeah, they really are. But I'm going to have to be really honest with you on that one, Gail, because I believe they know that. I believe they know that it is mainly affecting Black and brown girls, which is one of the reasons why it's being pushed. Because we've always been at the bottom. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, you know what I mean, that we have to, we will remain there until we start being recognized as being a part of the human being, a part of society like every other person is. That's my personal opinion. When I went to DC to talk about not legalizing it there, I'm telling you, where it's happening all over the country is mainly in the Black and brown communities. It's men, buyers coming into our communities and soliciting our women and girls. And that's where the police are picking them up. In every community all over the nation, it is mostly in the Black and brown communities that it's happening in. So until it starts happening on the lawn of the White House or in some big white suburban area where it's mainly white individuals, then people's ears will start to open up and eyes will start to see what's going on. I believe it.
What an irony, so many whites avoid Black neighborhoods, but they know exactly where to go when they want to buy.
They really do. That is so true. And it's unfortunate. Mm-hmm.
So, I've been doing sort of anti-porn work for probably 30 years or so, and what really bothers me in one way is, and it's just beginning to change now, is how it's siloed anti-pornography and anti-trafficking. And really what we need to do instead of siloing this is to bring the two together, because as long as we continue to have pornography, we'll have prostitution. And as long as we have prostitution, we'll have pornography.
Yeah, that's right.
To why you think it's been so siloed between the two movements and we've not worked more together.
I'll tell you why I think it's siloed. And I have always said that prostitution and pornography trafficking, they're one and the same. You know what I mean? They really are one and the same. And basically, porn is prostitution on paper, in movies, on the internet, on Facebook, on Instagram. And people have to recognize that. It's just like anytime they hear that something is legal, for some reason they want to make that right. It can't be that bad. You know what I mean? We don't have to deal with that. But as long as porn is around and legal, we'll always have prostitution. I keep saying we cannot end prostitution until we end pornography. Now that's a big, that's a lot to take, but it's the truth. That's all. Every woman that has been involved in prostitution or trafficking, to some degree, she's been involved in pornography, in some ways.
Can you speak more to that? In what ways? Because I think it's really important to hear this.
Pictures, taking pictures and just, I don't know, if you get on the internet, you look at Facebook, and you look at some of the photos that are taken of some of the women on there. And I'm going to say again, I speak mainly about African-American Black women, Black and brown women. If you see some of the pictures that are on Facebook and Instagram, it is so apparent what is happening to them. And a lot of them are always talking about their boyfriend, their exploiter, or what they don't call him that, of course. But the pictures are they're all over. We can't avoid it. It's in music. You know what I'm saying? Music is a form of pornography in a lot of ways. A lot of these songs, it's just becoming integrated or normalized in our culture right now. And so, and a lot of people don't look at it like that. They just don't understand it. And it's getting worse and worse.
Well, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but on Pornhub, there's a whole genre where Johns are secretly taping them buying sex with women. And these women don't know they're on Pornhub. It's in the car and they've hidden the camera. So
Yes.
We've got that. But also, when we want to think about the demand side, we all, although we're all feminists and they argue we're man haters, I always say feminists are men's best friends, because we're the ones who say you're not born a John, you're not born a pimp, you're not born an abuser, you're socialized into it. And that what better way to socialize a man into being a John than to give him pornography? Yeah. That's going to drive him, because he's going to want the kind of sex that he sees in pornography that most women will say no to. So what is the one group of women who can't say no?
Yes, yeah, that is really a sad thing, because I say that so many young boys that I have talked to, because I've gone to a lot of the boys' jails and such, and that's how many of them are initiated into the gangs, into just this whole life. They're viewing either they have to sleep with a woman who's in the life, a prostituted woman, or they're viewing prostitution and they're seeing things. They're given certain things that they have to do, take pictures of their girlfriend, or some woman in some way. And a lot of people don't understand. These are all ways that these young boys, and under the age of 18, get initiated into this whole life within itself. So
that's right. And it's a rite of passage now. Especially it's an absolute rite of passage as well. So can you explain, we've talked about pornography and trafficking interchangeably. Would you distinguish between the two, or do you see the two as the same, pornography and trafficking?
I've always seen the two as the same. That is what pornography is, a woman having sex, selling her body to an exploiter. You know what I mean? And prostitution is the same thing. It's a woman being purchased.
What would you define as trafficking? Different to prostitution?
And I'll tell you, trafficking is the buying and selling of a human being. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what porn is. You know what I mean? In my opinion, unless someone has a different definition of it, it's about buying and selling bodies of women. But there is a difference now in pornography and in prostitution for women of color. Because we talked a little bit about African-American women and girls, they're seen differently, both in prostitution and in pornography. They're seen as, white women are kind of viewed more as objects, which is not good. But Black and brown women are viewed as animals, beasts. Mm-hmm. So they get the worst type of treatment. They're expected to do the worst kind of act than that of white women are. You know what I mean? And none of it is good. Don't get me wrong. None of it's good. But the black and brown women are at the bottom of the bottom there, you know. And
in many ways, in pornography, I have to say, you know, I've seen stuff that is, I cannot unsee and it's terrible, but the worst I ever see, the most violence you see on Pornhub is when it's usually an African-American woman and a white man.
Yeah.
That's when the violence is unspeakable. It's and
it
the
really is.
Unspeakable. And you can see how black bodies of women, and also, by the way, black male bodies are exploited.
That's right. Yeah, they're the most aggressive. You know, I mean, you're right. When I first started doing this work, and I went into a couple porn stores because I just wanted to see, you know, how they displayed or how they viewed women, period. And there was a whole, I'll never forget, there was a whole wall of nothing but black and brown girls who were tied up, who were, you know, I couldn't believe the way that they were being viewed in these porn magazines. On the other side, the white women were very sexy looking, you know, more glamorous looking. None of it is glamorous like we think, but compared to the black women being hung from trees and you know, having to penetrate men hanging from, it was the worst I'd ever seen. And I realized that, when women in prostitution and trafficking tell me about their experiences, the things they're asked to do are just like those things that they see in the porn in magazines. And, you know, it's people don't realize that, but it is true.
No, I mean, as I say, you can't separate these two. And I've spoken to so many women who've exited. Sorry, go on.
No, there's no difference, in my opinion. Yeah.
No. Well, how many women who exited prostitution say the Johns come with the porn on the phone and say, "Do this. I want you to do this."
And they show them what they want them to do, you know. And if she says, "I don't want to do that," normally or usually there's some kind of violent behavior, you know, like physical violence that takes place. He's got a way of making her do whatever it is he wants her to do. And especially, again, if she's black or brown.
So we cannot take race out of this discussion. It is
no, we can't. This is all about racism.
Foundational.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
I completely agree. And what's interesting about how they treat white women in the industry is, you know, that one of the big selling is called interracial, where it's a white woman and black men. And you know that once a white porn performer has appeared in interracial, i.e. been penetrated by a black man, you know, she can never go back to doing white on white porn. She's considered too tainted. So talk about the racism, is that
that's true. That is so true. Even when, we went, you know, when when women are working in Nevada, you know what I mean, at the legal brothel, the black men have to use the back doors. You know, they can come in close. And I've heard that from the white women. If they have sex with a black man in the brothel, he has to use the back door. I keep saying black door. It is the black door for the black men. You know, the back door. He has to go through the back, and then he has to go out the back door. So they don't want the white customers to see that this black guy, has come in. And just another thing, I mean, I know we haven't talked about this, but there's a big difference in the way black and brown girls and women are being treated from that of white women in our criminal justice system. You know what I mean? When they're arrested on prostitution charges. And I'll never forget, 2 of them got arrested together. The officer told the black woman to get out of his car and go, and go back to doing what she knew how to do best.
Oh, wow.
The white woman got very upset and said, "Why can't I get out?" He said, "Because you should know better.
Wow.
You have options. You're better than that." I'm telling you, the whole system is set up to treat black and brown different than that of white.
Well, it's such a core stereotype from slavery that this is what you're there for as a black person. You don't exist as a human being. You're there, and as we know, on the plantations to sexually serve white men, and then you're tainted. The whole thing is just driven by racism. It's so astounding.
It is.
So now I've got a question to ask you that has been bothering me a lot. So, there's all these wonderful groups formed by exited women who've exited out of prostitution. I've heard Space, which is a
Right.
fabulous group. I know you're involved with Space as well and all the other groups. Can I say, working in this field of anti-pornography, there is no similar groups of women exiting pornography who are sort of forming not just survivor organizations, but political organizations that are very strategic. And I've been thinking, why have we got such a robust group of organizations of survivors of trafficking and prostitution, but not of survivors of pornography? And this is one, and tell me what you think of my theory. My theory is that, and this is probably not so true today, is that you never exit pornography because your images are forever up there. Even if you leave the industry, you're never out of it because that image will live after you die.
Yeah, you are right. I think you're 100% right there. But the other thing, Gail, I think it gets back to pornography being a legal industry or entity, what have you. It's legal. You know what I mean? So a lot, and I'm just saying too, from ladies that I've talked to that have been involved in pornography, they don't come to agencies that provide services for women in prostitution because to some degree, they don't see themselves as being the same. They see themselves working in this legal kind of, trade, and that they're it's different for them because it was legal. So again, it's right to some extent, or it's not as bad.
Oh,
but
that's
yet,
so interesting. You're so right.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is actually what we found is that when women have images of themselves made when they're prostituted and put on the internet, they have more PTSD than if not. So these women who think that they shouldn't, they're not survivors, actually are probably suffering from more PTSD.
They really are. Yeah, because the few that I have talked to, when they come, they talk about how depressed they are and how they just can't seem to, they feel like there's something going on the inside of them. They just can't put their finger on it. And then when I start bringing up what they're doing through pornography, well, they're doing the same thing as prostituted women and girls. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's something that they can't escape. That feeling never changes. You know what I mean? And when they come to identify with it, then things start to change for them. They realize, I'm no different. That's who I am. I've been trafficked.
And that's what happened to me. They got
right.
Many women I've interviewed say things like, I agreed to do this, I signed a contract, but something happened to me that first day on the set and I was never the same again. Well, they were raped. That's what happened to them.
They were.
Because they signed a contract doesn't mean they weren't raped. And
that's
so
right.
This even adds more urgency to the anti-pornography and anti-trafficking groups to get together. We have to work together. And to all those groups out there, I really do implore you to start taking on pornography, just as you did at Breaking Free, just as Coalition Against Trafficking and Women have done. These are the groups that I increasingly see are taking on pornography, but some groups aren't. So there's lots of questions here. Do you think the normalization of sex in advertising as an object of consumerism reinforces the normalization of pornography? I would probably say they want to say the normalization of hypersexualized advertising normalizes pornography.
I do.
Yeah.
I think that part of what you're saying, but it really does. In my opinion, it does. Definitely.
And I think it grooms boys, potential porn. Right. Let me see what other questions. They say, where is the aftercare for survivors?
There's aftercare for survivors. There's programs. They're not all over. I wish there was programs in every city all over the country. Unfortunately, there isn't. There's only that I know of a few really good programs that really do aftercare for survivors. If they're talking about I say porn and prostitution, again, because they are one and the same to me. You've been in porn, you've been in prostitution, you've been in prostitution, you've been in porn, and so, but there are programs that are out there. There's just so few of them. Hard to get money, hard to keep them open.
Okay, so another question. What would you say to the narrative that defends women in porn as being better paid than men and therefore it's a job? And how can we break that narrative?
Oh my gosh. I think we break the narrative by talking to the women. What is a job? You know what I mean? And actually, I do a group on that with a group of women who've been prostituted, and some might have been in porn. But we break down what is a job. What do you expect from a job? What do you expect out of being bought and sold? You know, what do you get from that? You know, when you're bought and sold, you know, do you get any benefits? What is there? What's the impact it has on your life? You know, and you would just be amazed at the things people say. You know what I mean? This is what I do. I go to work. My job is being sexually harassed. My job is being raped. That's what I do. Is that really a job then? Are there any protections for you? No, this is my job. So we really compare it. We really break down the reality of what a job looks like versus what prostitution, porn, trafficking, what they look like. We're far from a job there. And I have I created a job description. I said, if we were to hand this job description out on, is this really a job?
What is this? Give me a taste of the job description. Give us a taste of it. What is it?
Who do you report to? Where do you work? You know, in prostitution, trafficking, who do you report to? Many people report to a pimp, a drug dealer. Who do you report to at work? You have a supervisor with with a legitimate office that you go to. Where do you go to work? You go in the back of a abandoned building, a hotel. What are you expected to wear on your job in prostitution, trafficking, porn? Nothing. You're completely nude. What do you wear at your job when you go to work, at a business? You have your suit on, you have whatever. I mean, what is the duties? I said, I make them break that down. What are your duties?
That's wonderful. Can I say, all those out there,
comes up. Huh?
All those out there who call it sex work, they need to listen to this. They need to listen because this
is not work.
This is not work.
This is violence against women. This is sexual abuse to the highest. That's what this is. We're not talking about a profession, a job. And then you age out. You
can't take the trauma to the body, to the mind. Right. I mean, in pornography, for example, the average woman only lasts 3 months because she gets so many STDs. Her body is wrecked by it. She can't tolerate it. 3 months, and then you know what? It's a very short ride from LA to the brothels of Nevada. That's where a lot of them.
Yeah, that is so true.
Given what they've been through. So
and then the bottom line, though, is many of the women don't even make it out. Last night, I spoke at the memorial service that they do at Breaking Free. Breaking Free has a memorial service once a year for the women who have died while, been killed, committed suicide, jumped off bridges while in the life of prostitution. So many, and I say every year that the line where people read off about the survivor, the woman who was in the life, how she got killed and such, that line gets longer and longer every year. So many don't, this is work, a job. You might not even make it out of the life. Die while you're in it.
Oh, Vednita, you do the goddess's work. Can I tell you that? Really, you do the goddess's work, what you're doing. It's just, every time I hear you speak and every time you say these things, it doesn't matter how many times I listen to you. And I think now it's so important as well that we bring race, as we said, into it. And that the lessons to take away from this is, first of all, get rid of the silos, understand we're dealing with a sex industry that is a revolving door, that race is not sex work, it is sexual exploitation and oppression.
Yeah.
And that we have to battle to end the sex. Otherwise, all women will not be free, not just the women in it.
Yeah. Oh, this makes statement about all women. If they can't rape me, they can rape you. They can rape your daughter. They can rape another woman. It makes a statement about all women, and we have to stick together and say the same things.
In sisterhood. That's exactly right. In sisterhood.
Yes.
So if there's people with some upbeat thing, let's try and, I know we're living in very difficult times on many levels.
Yeah,
So let's
right
leave
now.
with something. If you wanted to give a message that will give some hope, what would it be?
My hope would be this can end. It really can, because a lot of people say there's no ending to this, but it can end. But it's just like you said, the only way it will is that we stick together as sisters, and we see this as violence against all of us, whether it happens to us or not. It's hurting my sister. We have to do it like slavery. Slavery ended when we had a revolution, and we might have to do that, Gail, at some point. Have a revolution to end all this violence.
Sign me up, Vednita.
Yeah.
Right next to you.
I hope it doesn't get to that, you know what I mean? But I don't want to see my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren.
A bloodless revolution. We don't have to make it other ways. You know, it's happened in other countries. But you know who will be the forefront of this? Women of color. Women of color be at the forefront of doing this, because it's got to change. This has to change. And you know what?
Yeah.
Just listening to you gets me ready to start stampeding the barricades, I have to be honest. And I hope everyone who's listening in here join Culture Reframed, join these anti-trafficking organizations together as women, based on sisterhood, and men of good faith who are pro-feminist can join us. We have to get rid of this sex industry. We cannot pass this on to our daughters or our sons. It's not fair to them.
Yeah, right. We can't. It has to end.
Well,
I think it's at a real ugly peak right now, but it's only going to get worse if we don't come together and say,
we don't stop it now.
About it.
We don't stop it now. So let's take all this cold, smoldering rage that we've got and all our power, women, to move mountains to change the sex industry. Our job.
So true. Yes, you're so right. You are so right.
And it's such a pleasure to see you, just to see your face and to interview you and to know you. You know, as hard as this work is, I have met the most wonderful people in my life in this, and you are definitely counted right up there, Vednita.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, and thank you for doing this. And let's stay.
I wouldn't do anything else. I'm telling you, we have to end it together.
We will. We will. We're doing it. We're doing it.
We will. Yes, definitely.
Thank you. So, on behalf of Vednita and Culture Reframed, thank you for listening in. This will go up on our Facebook page. We will let you know when, and wait for the next one, because we have another great Facebook coming. So best of luck, Vednita. I'm with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.